So apparently Mario Tennis Fever is worse than people had expected. Which is funny because it already had pretty low expectations after all of the reviews it got. Obviously, a few months ago, people were talking about this game and hyping it up as if it was going to be the first Mario spin-off game where the developers are actually trying, or at least the first one in a very long time. And then naturally, that was quickly swept away from the reviews, but then people bought it anyway and found out it was even worse than they expected. You have popular names like Nathaniel Bandy saying that he went through the entire story mode in something like 4 hours and said, don't even bother wasting your time on this. So many happy people all around the world that decided they would buy this game so they can jump on with their friend or a partner or a loved one, do some doubles matches online, only to realize that you cannot pair up with somebody and go and play doubles online. You can only go up there blind and pair up with a random person. Which is kind of always funny to me because every time there's a Nintendo game with online, people always are surprised at how behind Nintendo is and how much they effectively cripple their games that could otherwise potentially perform a little bit better. But no, why would they allow you to take your friend and play a doubles game on a ranked match? That's logic. Nintendo doesn't like logic. But even despite all of that, I think the video that most caught my eye was this one over here by Plain Rock Vlogs. I don't even think they uttered a word in the video. It's just 5 straight minutes of reused animations from Mario Tennis Aces. This is the next-gen Nintendo experience. It's the same game over and over again. The same console, the same everything. And they tell you that Nintendo didn't change after Iwata. Now, to an extent, stuff like this could potentially be forgiven. Right, like if a game is fully fleshed out, it's a sequel to a previous one, obviously it's going to be built off of the same engine. They don't always have to create fresh and original assets all the time. But sometimes they should. And what makes it even worse is when you're looking at the footage, sometimes if you're not looking at the title underneath it, you could be forgiven to confuse which one is the next-gen experience and which one came out in the second year of the Switch 1's life. But remember, months ago, and for the past few months leading up to this game's release, people have been telling you over and over again that it looks much better than before, and it's definitely going to be worth it as the next new great sports title. This is a $70 game. $70 of quality right here. Nintendo has really been pushing the narrative that their games need more time in the oven, and that's why they're going to be increasing the length of time between releases, acting like the price of development and the time lengths between development has dramatically changed their approach to gaming. This is the end result, what you're seeing on the screen right now. $70 frickin' and a larger gap between releases for almost every single franchise. It's laziness. It's not just laziness, it's overpriced laziness. They took away some features too, like they had global rankings on Mario Tennis Aces, they no longer have that on Fever. We know that they completely simplified the game to try to dumb it down and make it a lot easier. The Fever Rackets gimmick is not really appealing to people as much as they had expected it would, especially with how unbalanced and chaotic some of them can be. And to make matters worse, I don't even know if I can recommend somebody to go back and buy Mario Tennis Aces now, because I would feel awful telling somebody to go back and spend $60 on a Switch 1 game, a last-gen title that came out in 2018. Because really by now, Mario Tennis Aces should be permanently $20 on the Nintendo eShop, maximum. But honestly, even looking back, you wonder if the Switch 1 games that were all priced at $60 was even justified. Back then, many people had called it out, but nowadays, more and more people are starting to realize they probably weren't. But there's a very big difference between the Switch 1's launch and the Switch 2 launch, and obviously, it's pricing stuff, right? If you bought a Switch 1, Breath of the Wild, Mario Odyssey, a Pro Controller, and Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, and that was all that you had purchased in the first year and a half of the Switch 1's life, and that would have given you ample time on the Switch, you probably would have not even needed to buy any more games, then by the time Mario Tennis Aces came out, your total expenditure on the Nintendo Switch would have only been $550. So then now when Mario Tennis Aces comes out at $60, you know, it's not that big of a deal anymore. You're kind of like, okay, like it's a higher price software, but I still haven't really spent that much in the past year. Meanwhile, with the Nintendo Switch 2, if you bought a Switch bundle with Mario Kart and then Donkey Kong Bonanza, with no Pro Controller and no other games since July when Bonanza came out, you're already sitting on more money than what you spent on the Switch 1 prior to the release of the tennis game. And if you decided to buy that Pro Controller and you decided to buy a Zelda title as well, you're sitting at $740, and now Nintendo hits you with a $70 tennis game. A $70 tennis game that is reviewing poorly, a $70 tennis game that is not as good as its predecessor, and if you're somebody that still owns that previous game, you would see little reason to even upgrade it, because even looking at the reviews and watching the gameplay and seeing people's discussion around the title, you realize that even if you were somewhat intrigued about this game, it's just not even worth giving it a second thought. Right now, those two situations that I just described have a $200 difference between the Switch 2 experience and the Switch 1 experience. It's 32% more expensive than it would have been last gen. And that's with Mario Kart 8 Deluxe being bundled in. So you're saving 30 bucks there. Except you're not exactly saving 30 bucks. You're spending 50 bucks for a game that for all intents and purposes should have been $60 maximum, just like the last gen Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. And I think that's the other problem too. You're comparing Mario Kart World to Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, where Mario Kart 8 Deluxe was objectively a much better experience than Mario Kart World is. Both the critical and the user reviews suggest that, as well as the online sentiment around the title. We're comparing Donkey Kong Bonanza to Super Mario Odyssey, and once again, both critic and user reviews and online sentiment and sales numbers and everything suggests that Mario Odyssey was a much better game, much better launch title than Bonanza was. And we're comparing your choice of two different Zelda games that are just ports from the previous gen one. So it's like, been there, done that. I've already played this game. Give me something new. The general experience, if you're keeping track of everything online, is nothing but people complaining about Nintendo. And I'm not even talking about myself, right? My opinion has nothing to do with this. I haven't bought any of these games because I'm not going to waste my money on them. But I read and I see. I'm watching fanboys give up and be critical, and I've been seeing it since prior to the Switch 2 launching. How many Metroid fans got absolutely broken because of Metroid Prime 4? How many Mario Kart fans waited 11 years to be turned away by stupid intermission tracks in Mario Kart World? How many Switch 2 buyers have been tricked into spending $10 or $20 or $5 on an upgrade pack and then sat there and been like, I don't know if I really needed this upgrade on this pointless experience. And then the worst part is when they finally put out a brand new game in Mario Tennis and they give you an actual sequel, you're like, this is not worth 70 bucks. At best, this is maybe DLC. You know, there seems to be a common sentiment that Nintendo can't catch a break. I fully disagree with this. I think people that are giving their money to Nintendo cannot catch a break. From the launch of the Switch 2 and until now, Nintendo fans have clearly experienced some force of buyer's remorse or another. Whether it's waiting for a bigger game to be announced, or whether it's expecting a better performance for your Switch 1 games to enjoy them better on the Switch Pro, or whether it's being completely underwhelmed by a brand new game that you were so hyped up for and waited so long for. And Mario Tennis Aces is just another strike in that same direction. Do you know why the Switch 2 software sales are so low? Because people are not playing with the Switch 2 they bought. It's the clearest indication of something collecting dust. Because let's be real, we know that most people are not playing Mario Kart World. Pokemon fans have finished Pokemon Legends ZA. And Bonanza at the very best has a 1 in 4 attachment rate, and that game came out back in July where most people wanted it, bought it, finished it, and moved on. I'd say that maybe the Nintendo Switch 2 would have made a nice little piece to put on your TV stand. An attractive, eye-catching device to start a conversation maybe if somebody came over. But by now, nobody really cares about Switches anymore. It's no longer as interesting as it was when the first one came out. And it looks like a tablet with black controllers, because that's what it is. They couldn't even provide any color to make things pop. And when they added more color, they didn't make it exposed color. But look, enough is enough, and it's time to stop sugarcoating it. Not every game is worth $70. It is not a standard price for video games. Nintendo got away with the $60 price tag for the Nintendo Switch 1 because it was the same price as the previous generations, what they were priced at. And more importantly, their introduction to the actual console itself was cheaper. And I often see people trying to make an argument that the fight against $70 is over. No, it's not. Because Nintendo fans are just now experiencing $70 Nintendo. And it should not come as a surprise to anybody that every single one of these new games are underperforming in comparison to their previous counterparts. And if they don't have previous counterparts, they are underperforming in comparison to games that would have been comparable in the previous generation. The $70 fight against video games is still well and truly alive. At least that's the case in the Nintendo circles. Just because Sony and Xbox did it does not mean that Nintendo was allowed to do it. Sony and Xbox fans, they can vote with their wallets. Nintendo fans, they also can vote with their wallets. I don't think any game should be priced at 70 bucks. But if somebody was to tell me that Tears of the Kingdom was the only one on the Switch that came out at 70 bucks, whether or not I agree with it, I can have that conversation. If you told me Bonanza was a $70 game, whether or not I agree with it, I can have that conversation. What I cannot wrap my mind around is the fact that people look at Mario Tennis Fever and they shrug and say, "Nah, the industry standard now is 70 bucks. Yeah, no. That's not how this works. Just because GTA 6 might be charged $100 and a lot of people will buy that game, does not mean that Nintendo gets to release games that are overpriced and deliver less content and less of an experience than what their previous cheaper titles used to give. Nintendo fans used to spend $40 on games on the 3DS, and the experiences were more valuable than what would be a $100 Switch 2 game today. Every one of these Nintendo Switch 2 titles have underperformed and they failed to meet sales expectations. Software titles have struggled massively on this console. Even the successful ones have underperformed in comparison to what Nintendo would have expected from them. The majority of Nintendo fans are not as dumb as people make them out to be, because if they were, these $70 titles would be performing a lot better than they actually are. Voting with your wallets is well and truly working. If Nintendo is demanding higher prices, we should have higher expectations.